And we've heard some special stories from friends. We paused over the summer, and now we are relaunching. We have the honor to have Ramez Salamé from Lebanon being our guest speaker this morning. This session is being recorded so others could benefit from it in the when they would like to see it in the future. I'm grateful that my colleague Olga is here as a technical host and technical support. We will have a conversation with Ramez for about maybe half an hour, and then we'll have the rest of the time for you to ask questions and to share your own thoughts and comments. We will aim for 60 minutes, but this is designed for up to 90 minutes. So the mileage is yours as long as you can go up to 90 minutes. So again, let me warmly welcome Ramez. Thank you so much for offering to be our first speaker in this series, Ramez. Ramez Salamé is known to many of you, I am sure. He is in Lebanon, from Lebanon. Ramez is a lawyer by profession, has led a life both as a family man, a father of 2, and now a grandfather of 7, and as a professional, but also as an MRA person and an MRA worker, I would like to say, who has really taken the message and the life of moral rearmament into his personal and his national life. Again, thank you for being with us, Ramez. Maybe it's just worth mentioning for those who don't know me that my name is Imad Karam and I am the executive director of IFC International. I've got to know Ramez when we met first time at CO many years ago. I think it was 2003 or 2004. And I was really touched by his sense of attention, sense of care, and sense of putting what is right above who is right. And just his amazing character, working very quietly and prayerfully, but making a difference to people's lives and keeping an eye always on the big picture. So Ramez, I'd like just to start by asking you if you would like to add anything to your personal introduction. You're muted, Ramez, please, if you could unmute yourself.
Just to say thank you for this honoring me and asking me to be a speaker today.
Thank you, Ramez. So I'd like to ask you, just to get to know your story, Ramez, how did you first encounter IFC moral rearmament? When was it and how did it happen?
Well, I encountered MRA, which how it was called at that time, in 1968, which is 52 years ago. I was then ending my studies in law at the university in Beirut. And by chance, just by mere chance, I went to a meeting just across from the university. And at that meeting, there was a group of British trade unionists who had gone to Panjshiri, that was in 1968, and were returning to Britain, and they had to stop overnight in Beirut. So they came and held a meeting and spoke about IFC MRA. So that was my first encounter. And at that meeting, there was a young man living in Beirut who was with IFC. His name is Roddy Edwards. And Roddy noted down my name and my telephone number. And a few days later, he called me and invited me to join him for quiet time meetings. And at that meeting, at the start, there was another young man working with IFC. He was Johannes de Paus from Holland. Later came John Mills, who is an Australian, and I'm so happy to see John here, whom I haven't seen for a very, very long time. So greetings to you, John. this is how it started.
Thank you, Ramez. So what happened next? How did it get into the Lebanon? And how did we get to an MRA team in Lebanon?
Yes. Well, I can say that I have known uh, MRA, IFC, uh, from the best way one can know it. And this is just through quiet time, you know, without much introduction about what is MRA, what does MRA do. But I was invited just to share quiet times with, as I said, Rodney Edwards and John Mills and later others. And in these quiet times, I was struck, something struck me and attracted me. I would say that was for the first time I started discovering something I didn't know. I didn't realize at all, which is the interior life. I was a person living in a way outside of myself. And for the first time, I discovered this interior life and a presence in this interior life. A presence also which I never realized. So, uh, so something beautiful started taking place in me. Uh, I would say at that time, if I am to describe myself at that time, I would say I was a very much ego-centered person. I had, of course, good ideas. I had good uh, uh, good intentions, but nevertheless, something which I did not realize at all at that time. I was very much ego-centered. So quiet time started bringing me out from this ego. Uh, well, I decided that year to go to Co during the summertime. I went to Co, and there in Co, gradually, the conviction grew in me that if I wanted to do something beautiful, something meaningful for the world, for my country, I have first to start with myself. And this meant staying by myself and looking at my life at the life of before absolute standards. And it took me 10 minutes just to note down four things I thought were not right and which I am meant to put right. My relation with my father. I am the eldest at home, and when I grew up, our characters started clashing. My relation with my brother, I have a brother who is 6 years old, 6 years younger than me. And so at a certain time, I became jealous of him. And because of that, we quarreled. And because of this quarrel, which was a violent quarrel, we we stopped speaking to each other in a way, though living in the same house. The fourth thing was a book I had stolen from the university uh, library. And the last thing was friends at the university whom I had betrayed. And to hide this betrayal, I lied on them. So I had to put right every one of these four things. And I felt something pushing me to do that because it was very, very difficult to do these things for me because it cut, through my pride. Uh, but yet, with God's grace, I say God's grace now, but at that time, God still meant very, very little to me. I did these four things. And when I did them, I had a very, very liberating feeling. Very liberating. I would say a healing process, took place into my being. And I became like reconciled with myself deeply, with the others, and reconciled with God, because I could not deny anymore that it was God who has changed me, who has brought this very deep change in me and very deep reconciliation.
Thank you, Ramez. Some of our friends are struggling to hear or understand you perfectly. I am, maybe because I also know you, I'm okay with understanding you, but not everybody is. I wonder what microphone you're using and whether we can improve it. Are you near a microphone, or is it the computer microphone that you are using?
Is that good? It's not good. The microphone is not.
Maybe coming closer to the microphone would help.
Yeah.
Our
Okay.
older friends.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Maybe that will just make a little difference, which would be helpful.
Oh, surely. Surely.
So Ramez, I would like just to get a bit of a picture of how did the initial team, the core team, come about, the opportunities, the challenges, and the circumstances around coming together in Lebanon to form a team.
I would say at that time, in this first period of my experience with IOC, I was not eager to create a team, but I was eager to talk about my experience with some friends. This desire to create a team came later on, which was exactly 12 years after that. It was at a time when my faith grew, when I became more mature, and uh, and my thought was, how can I and with whom should I be serving God? Uh, and so I was searching for the group of people whom I had to join because I felt I cannot do this work by myself. I have to be with others, a committed group. Because at that time, I didn't say that there was a family living in Beirut, an American family, uh, uh, Harry Almond and his wife Bev, who have now passed away. And it's because of this family that the young people I had met first were in Beirut, because they were in touch with this family living in Beirut. So this family left Lebanon. So I was by myself in Lebanon with no touch with any person with IOC. And then the war started a few years later in Lebanon, and I was totally by myself. But I thank God for one person who once came to Beirut just to see me, just for the sake of seeing me, and that was in the middle of the war. And his name was Bill Connor. And he came just for one day. And Beirut at that time, no foreigners would come, to Beirut. Yet he came just to see me. And it's how I started to link again with Co and IOC. And so I went to Co again 10 years after. 10 years after the first time I went to Co. And so uh, I came to a point where I knew that I am meant to be with this group called IFC, called Moroi Army. And so I took this decision alone that this is where you, God, want me to be. This is where you want me to grow, in my life with you and to grow in your calling for me, which is IFC. And so it's only at that time that I started thinking how we can create a group in Lebanon. And it happened easily through inviting from time to another friends, what you call them full-timers, to come to Lebanon, to come over to Lebanon and spend 2 or 3 weeks. And with them, we would organize meetings here or there, in the country. And this is how the first people who, reacted positively to this message, with these people, we started to form a group. And this is how the first team, was created. And it has been so, later on, of course, we were able by ourselves, to do the work which needed to be done in Lebanon.
Yeah. Ramez, thank you. What year was your first visit to Co, if I may?
Pardon?
What
Pardon?
year did you visit Co first time?
First time, 1968.
68. So then this was before the Civil War, which I think started in 75.
That's right.
And that's one of the major events that have happened to the Lebanese people, and with so much, death and destruction. So what was the interaction, if you like, between your newfound calling and meeting with moral armament, but also your country and your people, that's the Christians, needing you to fight for Christianity at the time? Can you tell us about the experience of the Civil War, please?
Hmm. Well, when the war broke out in Lebanon in 1975, uh, I felt I should join the war effort on the side of the Christians, because the Christians in Lebanon felt threatened, and at that time the PLO was very much uh, was quite powerful in Lebanon and was controlling uh, parts of the country. And at some time, at a certain time, I bought a weapon, military weapon, and joined some local militias in Beirut, where I was living, because my home was a bit more or less on the what you would call the separation line, in Beirut. But after a certain time, in fact, 3 years after that, while having quiet time in the morning, because I kept on the quiet time, quiet time became something, which I was, which I had to do every day. Uh, One day in the morning, I had a quiet time, and the thought came to me that this war in which you are involved may be legitimate, but uh, it's not the superior war. It's not the war which God intends to fight. And so I asked God, so what would you like? What can I do to join this superior fight? And the thought that came to me was simply give up your weapon. So I gave up my weapon. And the thought came later on, much later on, you should in Lebanon meet Christians and Muslims and start a dialogue and see how you can together be responsible for doing something about your own situation, about stopping the war. And this is what we started to do. At that time, I had made my commitment to be with my final commitment to be with IOC. And so we started meeting, and those meetings kept on going. And so from someone fighting militarily, I was someone doing simply what God showed me I should do. I could say now, after much time after that, that what we have done has brought something beautiful, first to us who are part of it, and secondly for our country. I think it influenced uh, our society, the society at large in Lebanon, in some way or another. Because many people came and joined these meetings, and later on politicians, uh, religious leaders, people who were in the militias. And one of them, you know him, Asad Shaftari, came to these meetings and his deep change started in those meetings. So this is my interaction and with the war in Lebanon. So,
Thank you, Ramez. Sorry, I was muted. Um, so how did these then relationships that came together across the divide help maintain the peace after the civil war? Because Lebanon has also been through some bumps, and the last of which probably was
yes.
when the prime minister was assassinated. And Lebanon has not yet, or inshallah it will not, has not fallen back into kind of religious divides and religious lines. It has
Mhm.
all sorts of other problems. Have How did you as a team really play the role in maintaining the peace, if I may call it?
Well, after the war ended, we kept on having these dialogue meetings for about 10 years. Uh, but then we stopped as I say, as an IOC group. We stopped doing that directly because we found out that many other people, and some of them had been with us before, started doing something very much similar to what we had been doing. Uh, and so we felt that we are not called any longer to organize, more or less regularly those meetings. So I have nothing to say more because, as as I said, there was in the country, they came back again in the country, a spirit uh, of uh, of dialogue, the spirit of uh, being together again, and so these separations which we have experienced during the war, in fact, disappeared.
Thank you, Ramez. Just bringing it to today, I'm assuming not many people know a lot about Lebanon necessarily, but can you just give us a picture of the situation in Lebanon? I mean, recently the country has been struggling with economic problems, state maybe failure, corruption. Um, can you just give us the picture of what's going on in the country at the moment, please?
Yes, uh, the great event that took place about a year ago was Lebanon financial collapse. The state is unable to pay back, its loans. We have a very, very big public debt, and the banks also are unable to pay people, back their deposits. So there has been a freezing of all deposits in the banks, especially the deposits in foreign currency. And people can only draw very, very, very little amounts from their deposits in the bank. And in the same time, the Lebanese currency, uh, in comparison with the foreign currencies, the Lebanese currency dropped about one fifth. I mean, it has reached about one fifth of its previous value. So all this, of course, has created and is creating now in Lebanon a very, very big economic crisis because there is capital control and people and merchants, for instance, can very, with great difficulty, import goods to the country. For instance, Lebanon being a small country relies very much on imports. But this is to look at things, as newspapers describe things. Let me say something. My conviction is that we have another problem, and one would say an unseen problem. It's that we as Lebanese, because of our previous prosperity, became very materialistic, and we were caring about uh, ourselves, caring about our own wealth, our own success, our own careers, and caring very, very little for the country because the country had problems also. And you know, Imad, you come from Palestine. You know that Lebanon, as a small country, has a very uh, unstable, environment here in the Middle East, and this always tends to create instability, in Lebanon. So we were not prepared because we were preoccupied by something else, just our own success, our own material success. So I would say we had a financial bankruptcy in Lebanon, but we also were suffering to a certain extent with simply spiritual bankruptcy. And this is now, what we in Lebanon as IFC team want, what we want to deal with, we want to or try to respond to that, the need for uh, a spiritual, moral, revival uh, of the citizens of our country.
Thank you, Ramez. I was going to ask you what would be your hopes and fears for your country, but feel free to answer that question. But otherwise, I'd like just to ask if you have a message for young people in Lebanon. Having been through what you and your generation have been through, do you have a specific message for young people in Lebanon?
Truly, I have, yes. I have a message. It's the original message, of IOC. Uh, I would like to invite the young people in my country, and I'm trying to do so with the young people who get to know IOC, and who wish to join us, join our team in Lebanon, just to make that in their way, of course. This experience I have first made, discovering, discovering through quiet time this presence, uh, the presence of God, and to heed, to create a relation, with that presence, and uh, to see where they need to change, because we are unable to change our country, we are unable to change our world if we still are part, of the disease. If we are still part of the disease, we want to change, in our country and in the world. And this means, discovering God, loving Him, and obeying Him. It's difficult, but it is possible. I think this is the core message of IOC.
Yeah.
It starts at home. It
Mm.
starts in the workplace. It starts in your neighborhood. But if it doesn't start there, well, I wonder what can one do, for one's country or for the world.
Yeah. Thank you, Ramez. So let me just use the opportunity to ask you this. I mean, as you know, some IFC teams have been struggling with the question of generations and succession and engaging with younger people. You have had an experience in Lebanon. Could you share that experience with us? What have you been doing with the young and for the future?
Uh, as you know, Imad, in Lebanon, we do not have full timers. We all have, our families, or I mean, speaking of those who are married, or our work. See, uh, but we're glad and we're happy to have a few young people, who have uh, who have known MRA, IFC, and who are now part of what we're doing. Uh, And we thank God, for what Co has been offering to those young people and what Panchgani has been offering to those young people, because most of them have gone to Co and gone to Panchgani. And it has done a lot to them. We simply stay in touch with them. We simply need them, and we tell them, we need you, uh, and uh, and of course they know very well, what is quiet time, and you know, they like, they are attracted, to this kind of quiet time, and there are several things which we do together in the country. I cannot enumerate them. Uh, this is it.
Thank you, Ramez. But I know from my personal touch with you and the team that also you have given some of those young people who showed commitment and energy, you put them forward, you've given them a responsibility to be actually active and to represent the team internally and externally, which for me is a model, is an example, um, especially coming from the East, if you like, where patriarchy and the older ones have a certain status in society. So I personally appreciate what I have witnessed in Lebanon vis-a-vis the young and the engagement with the younger ones. Ramez, just one more question. I think we'll stop for a pause, a reflection, and then we'll open it for questions from our friends in this meeting. So maybe my last question would be about just reflecting on your experience, just about kind of, if you like, commitment and calling. And when one has a sense of calling and a commitment, and then things happen in one's life, how do we maintain, put it this way, how does one maintain calling and commitment in times of doubt, in times of crisis, in times of challenges? You must have had some experiences in your life. It could be personal, it could be a national crisis. Any reflections on this? Once
Surely.
once you've got a calling, it's always strong. Does it come under pressure?
No, no. Ah, uh, good question, Ahmed, because it's very normal. It is abnormal not to pass through challenges all the time. It's abnormal. Uh, it's faith. It is faith. Uh, how can I be close to God? He only, can put me on the right track. Uh, this is a personal. This is a personal thing. No one can do it in your place. It's a struggle. How how can I be close to God? And quiet time is so important. Quiet time is so important. And of course, uh, friends, committed friends, to be open about yourself all the time with close friends who like you, give the importance to God, a, central importance to God in their lives.
Thank you, Ramez. Thank you so much. A lot to reflect on. So friends, let's take a couple of minutes in silent reflection to reflect on what we heard from Ramez and maybe to think of a question or a comment. Please use the chat to put your name if you want to speak or ask a question, and feel free also to use the chat to write your own questions and your own comments and experiences. So we'll resume in a couple of minutes. Let's just be in a silent mode, please. Reflective. Thank you, friends. Thank you again, Ramez. Um, please put your name in the chat if you want to ask a question, and otherwise do put your questions and comments in the chat. Type it. We've got Nagia first. Dr. Nagia, please. You can unmute yourself and speak.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you very much, Ramez. I just want to add that Ramez had a very important role in expanding the work of MRA IFC through the Arab world. And I knew Ramez since 1968, and we met again in 1999 in Malta with the Agenda for Reconciliation, Dialogue for Mediterranean Civilization and Religions. And then we met Assad at that time, and we invited them to Egypt in 2000, a group from the Mediterranean. And this was a real beginning of the cohesiveness of the Arab team, yani, teams in the region, and the retreats that the Lebanese people host, other teams every year. The annual retreats were really very helpful in fostering the work and promoting the work of MRA. So the influence of Ramez is not only in Lebanon, it has spread to Egypt and other places, and Syria and Palestine. So we thank you, Ramez, for all what you have been doing and your inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nagia. And thank you, Dana, for your comment in the chat. Kiran, would you like to voice your question, please? Kiran Gandhi.
Yeah. Hi, Ramez.
Hello, Kira.
How are you? So wonderful to have heard your life's journey. Some of the facets were not known to me. What I was really struck by was the way you had complete surrender to inner leading, and for you, it was really the voice of God guiding you. I'm asking this question because that is the feeling I sometimes get, that in today's IFC, we have often reduced quiet times to a ritual or a mechanical process. We just stay quiet for a few minutes and then share some thoughts, which possibly are just surface level thoughts, not the kind of deep leading which you have talked about. So I wanted to ask you if at times you feel like I do.
I do feel that. Kiran. Yes, I do feel it. Maybe because, like you, I am someone who is not in the what we call now the West. I mean, we benefit from a great civilization, which started in the West, and in some way or another, it has spread all over the world. I think this civilization is now encountering what you would call a very powerful wave of secularism. This is how it is called in the West, secularism, kind of separation from faith, And I tend to believe, maybe I am wrong, that to a certain degree, IFC is also facing this powerful wave of secularism. Because sometimes we do not know how to address those who do not have a faith at all. But that was my position when I first knew IFC. I had no faith at all. I was a complete agnostic, total agnostic. But nevertheless, I was struck by the people. There was something in them that was compelling. And I feel I have to be, in some way or another, like those people who have influenced me. like those people who have made me come to the point of deep conviction that I needed to put right in my life things which were not right at the cost, the heavy, very heavy cost, of my pride, my ego, and all that. So I have an appeal, I appeal to my friends all over the world and particularly in the West, to again realize that in Bookman's idea, in Bookman's vision, uh, God was central. This God, who asks me to change first. This God who asks me, to be a man of truth, a man of love, and not a man of ego and pride, etc. But it is a struggle, and we need each other. I need you. I need Ahmed. I need Nadia. All others.
Thank you, Kiran, for the question, and Ramez for your input. Let me just use the opportunity to remind us all that the IFC Hub team, who are responsible for the iListens now and also for this living history, are currently planning also the relaunch of the thematic discussions, the first of which will be in December under the theme of culture of care. And what you have just brought up, Kiran, and Ramez's input is one of the subjects on the list. So sometime next year, there will be a dialogue. It's a space to hear each other, to listen, to understand each other. So, stay tuned for the thematic discussions as well. Next, we have Nick Forster. Nick, please.
Thank you, Ahmed, and thank you very much, Ramez, for your very, very inspiring story. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to sit at your feet here. My question that came into the silence that we've just shared leads on quite nicely, I think, from the last question and the answer that you just provided. So your faith is very evident. Your belief in what drives your hope and your conviction is your faith. I mean, it's there. It's very obvious. So, I mean, things are quite dark at the moment for many people around the world, and things have been very, very difficult in Lebanon with the explosion in Beirut. My question is, how do you share that wellspring? How do you share that wellspring of hope that carries you beyond despair, your faith and commitment, even as things seem desperate around you? So how do you share that with other people?
Thanks, Nick. But could you just, in short, could you please say again the question? I mean, your last sentence. How do you share the wellspring, so the depth of your hope that carries you beyond despair? How do you share that with other people? I don't have a ready answer. I don't have a ready answer. I think the first thing, Nick, is whether I have hope, in me, whether in me I have a sense of despair or a sense of hope in spite of the great difficulty. Excuse me, maybe I'm repeating myself, God is central, to my life. When I'm separated from him, I start feeling despair, but when I'm close to him, by his grace, I feel hope. You see, I feel hope. When I'm before speaking, sorry to speak about that, but a few days ago, I simply thought I was, do I have the merit, to talk, because Imad asked me to talk. I said, but I have a few sins, on my conscience. You see, I must deal with them before coming, before talking to you. This is my way of, you know, trying to remain close to God. As a Catholic, I would say we have the grace, of going to confession. You see, so I go to confession and I do it regularly. I kneel down, and I know now I'm a weak person. Uh, I know now that I know I am a limited person. So I need, without God, I'm a weak person. I have nothing to say to others. But uh, so hope comes from this close connection, this close friendship with God.
Thank you, Ramez, and thank you, Nick, for the question. I think next we have Iman. Iman Al-Ghafari, please.
Like to mention that when the war broke out in Damascus in Syria, and I met Ramez for the first time, meeting a member of IFC, and what really astonished me that I didn't feel that I was talking to someone who was different from my religion, who had different beliefs, who had, I never felt that there was any problem between Syrians and Lebanese in a certain time where, because I lived abroad and I didn't know about any minor tension between these two countries. So he never let us feel that tension. He never let the Syrians feel. So all the Syrians felt secure that he was someone they were able to go to dump out what's inside their hearts freely, happily, and with a big trust. So thank you, Ramez, for that. That made a lot of difference in Syrians' hearts. My question is, what is the basic element of quiet time that makes the person connect that deeply with his or her higher self, with God, and he can be guided deeply and honestly? So what was the first or the most important element of the good quiet time? Thank you.
I think Frank Bookman. I believe in his spiritual genius. I, I would say simply correction. Quiet time uh, is meant to let us see where correction needs to take place in our life. I think this is the this is central. This is very important on every level. On every level, uh, correction, comes should come, in our quiet times.
Thank you, Ramez. And thank you, Christina, for your comment in the chat. Najwa, would you like to voice your comment? I assume you're one of the Lebanese members. Be nice to hear from you.
Hello, everyone. Because you asked Ramez about the connection with the youth, so I felt I should just say that out loud, that he's always gone above and beyond to connect with the youth, and not just connect, support in any way, shape, or form. And he does it silently. He doesn't like he doesn't like to speak about it, but he does a lot of things. And we don't say that often, but we're really, really thankful for having him. And we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him. So we love you, Ramez. Thank you for everything you do every single day.
Merci, Najwa. خلينا إياك.
Thank you, Najwa. I thought we better hear from you because I know Ramez otherwise wouldn't tell us. Alex, nice to see you, Alex, and to have you here. Please.
Thank you, Imran. And thank you so much for the sharing, Ramez. My question is regarding, you shared earlier about at the later stage of the Civil War, when you listened to in the voice during the quiet time, you came to the decision to quit the militia and stop the fighting for yourself. At that moment, I was just wondering, was it quite difficult for you to follow that guidance? Because I imagine it may be a bit difficult to kind of leave your comrades, and maybe there may also be some doubts or whether like I'm not necessarily betrayal, but the sense of foregoing some solidarity with the people that you're identifying, because that's a question that I've been struggling with a lot. The division in Hong Kong haven't reached that level yet, but whenever I think of reconciliation, the first question is always like whether I'm departing, like the comrades that I've been working together with, whether it will be betrayal. So I would just like to hear more from you on that part of listening to the inner voice and choosing that path of reconciliation from reaching to the other side. Thank you.
And Alex, just before Ramez's response, is it fair to assume you might be experiencing something like this in Hong Kong at the moment?
Yes.
The question?
I maybe I can just a little bit of context. I think Hong Kong, since the anti-government protests since last year, I think the society is still quite bitterly divided. There are still a lot of anger against police brutality against protesters, and because there have not been any justice served, and I think there are still a lot of upset. But on my part, I've always been thinking, while I'm witnessing the injustice that I see, how do I respond? And if we are, as a society, are to move forward, if we are to build trust again, like if I'm to step into that position, whether I'm also in some way betraying my comrades in the protest movement. So I think that's a question that I've been struggling with.
Thank you, Alex. Ramez, any thoughts?
Well, first of all, I was a simple person. I mean, I didn't have at all any important position, with this group I had joined at the start of the war. But it doesn't mean at all betrayal. It doesn't mean betrayal. I think the military fight cannot be won. I mean, for a good cause. Let's say there is a very good and just cause. You cannot win it if you don't have the qualities IOC, requires from you or the group to which you belong. So it's not at all a betrayal.
But sorry, Ramez, but how do you make the case to the others, to the friends? Because that's easy for oneself to. I mean, one knows oneself.
Yes, just by sharing my experience of change with them,
Mm-hmm.
And maybe try to show them that God has a plan, and this plan is for all of us. And I invite you also to find while doing maybe what you are doing, yet to find also your place in God's plan.
Thank you, Ramez. Okay, friends. Olga alerts me that some friends have put their hands up. I prefer to have names because I don't really see the hands. So it's Afaf, it's Abdel Mohsen, and it's Dan. If you can put your name, then I'll know which order to ask you to speak. Otherwise, I'd like just to invite for a couple of minutes silence, just to again reflect and take in what we've heard. And then we'll have a second round for another 15 minutes maybe. And then we'll conclude by giving Ramez the opportunity to just give us any final thoughts. Excuse me, Dr. Nagy, we'll just take a couple of minutes silence. Is that okay? And then we will have Dan and Afaf. And if you want to speak, Nagia, maybe you can put your name, unless it's something urgent, then I'll give you the floor.
Can I speak, Ahmed, please?
Can we have 2 minutes of silence, unless you're going?
After the silence.
Of course, yeah, you're not putting your name down, so we'll ask you to speak.
I raised my hand.
Yes, I apologize for the hand raising. It's just easier with the chat names. Anyway, we will have you, no problem. So please, 2 minutes, and then we will resume. Thank you. Okay, thank you, friends. Thank you for your patience. And thank you, Ramez, for all your input. So we will go with the list as we see it on the screen. So Dan, Afaf, I think I'll ask Abdel Mohsen to go next, and then Ravi, please. So Dan.
Thank you. Ramez, thank you very much. I met you recently as friends of mine and myself have been reading through The Power of Silence by Graham Turner. And so it's a pleasure to see you today live, and continued success in all you do. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Afaf, please.
Hello. I was just thinking of what Ramez just said about he like going as a Catholic to speak and to just confess. And as a solution-oriented person, I was just thinking of, do we have enough listening platforms, because especially for the youth, because it is very important to increase the listening platforms for all speakers, and maybe most importantly, the youth, so that they can share their vulnerabilities and thoughts and feelings without having further consequences like violence or demonstrations or so on, which can be very, very costly. Can he just elaborate if he feels that such platforms are needed more and more? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Afaf.
Sorry, I could not hear well, Afaf. I could not hear her well. Could you?
Okay, simply, I was just asking if you think that more of listening platforms for the youth are needed.
More, pardon, more what? More
Listening.
Listening.
Let me
Yes,
try it,
yes.
Afaf. Sorry, let me try it. So Afaf is asking if we need more listening platform for the young people.
Sorry,
We
I
have
didn't get the word. Listening what?
she's using the word platform.
Listening
It's
platform. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we could say space. Are we listening enough to the youth? Do we have enough space for them to share so we can listen? That's her question.
Well, you're right. You're right. I think this is, I mean, this is where, this is the purpose of quiet time meetings, where they can share and say what they have on their heart, you know. This is what, thank God, we are doing in Lebanon, and thanks to the young people themselves, in fact, who are in charge of our quiet time meetings, you know. Those who are in charge are mainly the young people. And so other young people also join these quiet time meetings, and that is the opportunity for them to talk and for us to really listen to them. Yes.
Thank you, Ramez. And sorry, I've been joined by my son who's been waiting to play with me.
Yes. Hello, yes.
So that's Amr Ramez.
Hello,
So
yes.
next is we will hear from Bashmohandes Abdel Mohsen Farhat and then Dr. Ravi Rao, please.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. Thank you very much, Ramez, for inspiring talk, honest talk as usual. I want to speak for a minute about some of the qualities of Ramez and then ask him a question. The reason is that we should all benefit from each other. And his personal qualities, I think, give a lot of lessons. In short, I would say that Ramez is very, very qualified to become the Secretary General of the United Nations. In addition to his high spirit, high level motivations, he is also energetic. He is also calm. He's always capable of bringing people together from different factions, from different directions. He is also always willing to learn. I remember riding with him in a taxi, and a piece of poem was mentioned, and he directly took his notebook and wrote the few lines of the poem. I think there are a lot of things that we can all learn from Ramez, and I wish him continuous blessings from God. Now, my question in relation to Lebanon, I am always astonished about the situation in Lebanon, because when we remember Lebanon in our image, we remember the civil war, and we remember now the current problems. But we tend to forget how the civil war was resolved, and very quickly how Lebanon was rebuilt in a very, very clever and strong way with a lot of cooperation. So how come this moment of rebuilding, reconciliation, coming together again, and very quickly, it didn't take many years. Is it related to the qualities of Rafiq al-Hariri and the major politicians at that time who are different from this time? Or what is missing? The Lebanese as a person is very clever in many things. So I still cannot imagine the failure of one government after another in recent years. This is part of the question. The other part is the rationing system, al-muhasasa, predetermined shares for every faction, for every religious faction. Could it be reversed at least 50%? That is to say, if let us say the Roman Catholic would choose some members to represent them and would choose members from the other factions, let us say Shia Muslims, Sunni Muslims, other factions to represent them also. So in this case, we would encourage every faction to build bridges with the others so that the opposite factions would represent these factions. I hope I'm clear about that. There is something else related to secularism, but I think I don't want to take much time now. Thank you very much, Ramez.
Thank you, Dr. Abdel Mohsen. Your questions are very pertinent, but maybe it would be too long for me to answer them in a satisfying way. Maybe I should have a call with you, because I would like also to learn, from also our nation and our country also so well. But what comes to my mind is that our people in Lebanon have been too selfish and too individualistic, and so we were not able, unfortunately, to choose good leaders, good political leaders, and this is how we have come to our present bad situation. So we have to deal with this, in us, there is some change, that ought to take place in our soul, We come back to the Holy Quran's, verse, God will not change your situation in a country if people don't change themselves. So, but I will talk with you longer about this matter. I promise to have a chat with you personally.
Thank you, Ramez, and thank you, Abdel Mohsen. Next, we have Dr. Ravi Rao from India. Please.
Yeah, it's really wonderful knowing you, Ramez. I have many questions, but I will just ask two rolled into one. In this long association with MRA, have you seen any changes in IFC, MRA IFC, and in the world? And has the change been to your satisfaction? And is it keeping up with what is needed in this changing world?
Well, in IFC, the most important change, maybe, I have seen is simply what I have already said. We are departing a little from the importance of discovering and loving and obeying God. This is one thing. Now, the second part of your question in the world, I think our world needs IFC. Our world needs the message of Frank Buchman. And in a way or another, we have been called to take this message to the world. It will be a great loss for our world, for the civilization, we strive to have, to establish for the whole of humanity. It will be a great loss if IFC does not continue, does not fight, this fight. And the last thing, yes, IFC has made important changes, but what I would like to in fact emphasize part of these changes are unseen to us. And so we cannot say, well, we are not doing very much, so maybe we are not doing what we should be doing. It's not right. Part of these changes we cannot see because we are dealing with the souls of people, with the interior, of each human being. And this you cannot always see. Yes, our world needs terribly, especially today, yes, we are shown, that our world is not at all in a good, in a good situation. So we do not, I like this word of Bonhoeffer. Do you know what Bonhoeffer said? This man, this great German resistant who was hung by Hitler when he was 39 years old, He said, when he was in jail, he said, only is lost the battle which we abandon. We should not abandon this battle, to which we were called. And there is something very, very precious. I say this from Lebanon. I am a bit disconnected what's going on with IFC in the world, what is being done in India or in Britain or elsewhere, you see. But this fellowship, Ravi, this fellowship is very, very precious, for the future of our world.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ramez. Thank you, Ravi. And thank you, Suresh Khatri, for your comment in the chat. I think we'll come to the end here, friends. So unless anybody have any burning question or comment, well, let me just make an announcement and then we'll take a minute in silence before Ramez might share with us any final thoughts. So my announcement is that as it happens, Suresh and Lina Khatri will be our speakers in the afternoon Living History session of today's special relaunch. That will be at 3 p.m. GMT. So if you can, please join us. But as you all know, the design of these sessions is that we're catering for 2 time zones. So our friends in the East can join these meetings and our friends in the West, North America, can join the afternoon ones when they wake up. And the lucky ones in the Middle East and Europe and Africa can join both if they want, and also part of Asia. So yeah, so that's really the announcement. And also just for those who didn't pick up, the Living History will be once a month on a Saturday, and the next Saturday will be the 5th of December. And then the one after will be, I think, the 9th of January. And when we will have a special also Living History. So stay tuned with the announcements for the next one, please. So let's just take 30 seconds, 1 minute in silence, just to maybe give Ramez a minute to just reflect on any final thoughts he would like to share with us from his life learnings and journey. Thank you.
Daddy.
When you're ready, Ramez, please, if you would like to share any final thoughts with us, go ahead.
My final word would be really gratitude. first gratitude to you, Imad. You know what you are taking on, day by day, and it's hard and difficult, and sometimes much stressing. So thank you, Imad, what you're doing for our World Fellowship. And secondly, gratitude to to all of those, I mean, who have helped me in my journey of faith and journey of commitment. So this is the preciousness of our fellowship.
Well, thank you, Ramez. Thank you for you. And many people have been touched by you, some on this screen, some or many outside. We just we are all called to make a difference to this world, and IFC brings us together under the message of Frank Bookman, change yourself to change the world. And so on behalf of the organizing team, there is a team, I think, of 7 of us who are organizing this. I just happen to be the face today, but we're all in the background. I would like to thank you, Ramez, and thank all of our friends for joining us. And you know what? It's really getting cold in London, in Britain, but you may have noticed I've been struggling with the sunshine. And so the sun will continue to shine no matter what, how cold it gets. So let's keep smiling and the sun will continue to shine. Thank you, friends. Do unmute yourself to say goodbye and look after yourselves.
Goodbye.
Thank
Au
you,
revoir.
Thank you,
Vielen
Ramez.
Dank.
Thank you, Imad.
Bye, everyone.
Arrivederci.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Hasta la
Thank you,
vista.
everyone. Good to see you all again.
Bye.
Au revoir.
Bye.
Bye.
Back again.
Bye.